France hosted Scotland yesterday in St Etienne in France as a warm-up game before the Rugby World Cup. In this video, I'm going to talk about what happened in that game. G'day everyone, my name's Mark. I'm a Kiwi living in Cancun in Mexico, trying to spread the love of the game of rugby around the world, and you can do your part by helping me get to 2,000 subs on YouTube, so why not hit that subscribe button today. Well, after a pretty dire affair between England and Wales at Twickenham, we were all hoping that the France and Scotland game would provide us with a little bit more energy and positivity around rugby for this weekend. And if you haven't caught up on the Portugal game, go and check that out, because that'll give you some excitement as well. So off to St Etienne we were going to watch this game, and St Etienne is going to host 4 games during this year's Rugby World Cup. Fiji, Australia amongst others are going to be playing there, so it's going to be an interesting place to watch rugby. Now, coming into this game, French coach Fabien Galtier and Gregor Townsend, the coach from Scotland, were still in experimental mode with their teams ahead of the World Cup, and Galtier was making 13 changes to the French team that played against Scotland at Murrayfield last week, and Gregor Townsend brought in 6 changes to the Scottish team for this particular game. Now, both these teams are currently ranked in the top 5 in World Rugby, so it was going to be interesting to see what kind of arm wrestle this game was going to be. I think a lot of people were expecting France to have an easy win in France, with the majority of their A team back in the side this week, even though they haven't really had a run together in this warm-up series before the Cup. So it was going to be interesting from a number of different perspectives. Nick Berry was going to be the referee, and we saw hot and humid conditions in St Etienne as well, with temperatures around about 27 degrees, something that most teams will need to get used to, as playing in France at this time of the year, you are bound to get some hot weather. So physicality, stamina and endurance are going to be important, not only for this game but also for the World Cup games. Teams are going to have to be fit and ready to go for the full 80 minutes of their games. Now, I'm sure Townsend wanted Scotland to start off with a hiss and a roar in this game to keep the French under control, and in particular keeping the French crowd a little bit quiet, and that's exactly what they did, and they put a lot of pressure on France in the first opening minutes and showed that they really turned up to play this game. And it wasn't long before Kyle Stein went over for a try for Scotland, and it really got them going on the front foot, which was a really good thing. However, we all knew that the French weren't going to lay down and take this from Scotland, and it wasn't long before they bounced back and they got a really good try through Intermac, who just broke through the defensive line, straight through a gap and over the Scottish try line for a good try on the left hand side of the field. So what I liked about France in this opening few minutes was that they were being pushed around by Scotland, but they were also defending very well. And if you looked at their defensive pattern across the field, they were very, very strong up on Scotland very quickly, looking for quick clean out ball. But the Scots gave as well as they took in that opening exchange, and I think it was pretty even in that first part of the game. Going into this game, a few things that I was looking for was I was looking to see whether the Scottish forwards could handle the power of the French pack, and that was something I was interested in looking throughout the whole 80 minutes of the game. So when the Scots emptied their bench, I wanted to see whether their replacements were able to at least keep up with France, if not repel them in terms of intensity in that last quarter of the game. So that was something I was looking out for. The other thing I was looking out for was how was Scotland going to handle defensively the French spontaneity and creativity in attack. We all know how good Dupont and Intermac are, and also Ramos at fullback. They were bringing something special, or they bring something special to this French team, and I wanted to see how the Scottish defence was going to handle this particular part of the game. I thought the first 30 minutes of this game was really good. We saw it from both teams. They were willing to play rugby, they were playing expansive rugby, they were playing exciting rugby, and you could also tell that they weren't going to let the conditions slow them down for the entire game. So there was no surprise that when France were putting the pressure on Scotland started to impede a little bit as far as discrepancies go, and they started getting penalised. So a few disciplinary issues from the Scottish in the first 30 odd minutes or so of this game, and I think the penalty count was something around 6-2 in favour of France at that point of the game. So it was around that point of the game that Ramos got a penalty kick and brought France back to 10 points to 6 at that stage. And then because of the disciplinary issues, we did see a yellow card, and Price, the halfback for Scotland, got sent off. So France went ahead 13 points to 10, and that would end up being the half-time score. And if I was to summarise that first half, I thought both teams were fairly even, although Scotland's discipline probably let them down, and that led to France having the half-time lead. But I think most of us thought that if Scotland were in touch with France at half-time, then the second half was going to be exciting, and that's exactly what happened. So in that first half, some standout players for me was obviously Stein scored a good try for Scotland. Finn Russell showed his presence in this game, and it turned out for him to be the general for Scotland all across the field. His kicking was good, his decision making was good in terms of distribution throughout the back line. Tupolotu and Hugh Jones were playing really well in the centres for Scotland. I like both of these guys. I think they've got a really good combination there. And as the game wore on, their confidence grew, and you could see that they wanted to run the ball more. I think Tupolotu really plays that role of breaking the line, taking the ball up, getting early ball back for next phases of play. Jones, on the other hand, is someone that's really good at trying to make a break, and he did that several times in that first half. From a French point of view, well, the heroes really stood up, didn't they? Dupont was magnificent around the ground. Try assists as well as kicking from both feet and making strategic gains for the French all over the paddock. I thought Ramos is brilliant at fullback. He played very, very well, both from a strategic kicking point of view, but he also made good decisions when injecting himself into the field of play and taking on the Scottish defensive line. And I think that's something that fullbacks can really differentiate themselves for. When they're returning those high balls, the decisions they make, where they go on the field, can really lead to making them look good or making them look silly, and I think Ramos is really, really good at this. Aldrit in the forwards, Oliveron and Woki were really good in the first half for France. They were big, they were strong, they made the French look good at set pieces as well. And I think in the set piece, the French were getting a little bit over the top of Scotland in that first half. But it was a great game of rugby to start off with, and our spirits as rugby fans had returned after watching the England-Wales game. So I was pretty happy when we went into half-time in this game. Now I think at half-time both coaches would have told their teams to keep up the intensity and that they were both in this game to win it. I think Gaultier probably would have been a little bit more happier as he saw some domination in different areas of the field. I think with Dupont and Intermac there, anything could happen. And when the French forwards got on a roll, they looked very, very dangerous and potentially only one break away from crashing through the Scottish defence. But on the other side, I think Townsend would have been pretty happy with the Scottish performance in that first half. They stayed in the game. They bounced back when France scored points. And even though they had a yellow card, they went into the half-time break within reaching distance of the French. So it was really all to play for in the second half. Now the second half started in a way that Scotland didn't anticipate and didn't want to happen. The French were immense in the first 5 and 10 minutes, and they scored 2 tries in that period of time. Pinot went over and Oliveron went over for France, and all of a sudden the French had a good lead in the game, and one thought that this was going to be the time when the French spontaneity and impressionists in the game would come out and they would perhaps run away with the game. But that wasn't the case, and Scotland hung in there, and once they got back to their full complement of men, they were really putting it to the French. So across the field I was impressed with Kinghorn as he injected himself in from breaks in the game. A couple of his passes were just a little bit astray, which stopped the Scottish resurgence from going on and potentially making some big line breaks. There was one in particular to Duhan van der Merwe that was behind Van der Merwe that could have set him away for a particular try. But other than that, I think Kinghorn played pretty well in broken play, and of course because of his size he can make his injection into that back line and make a real difference for Scotland. Barge played really well in the forwards for Scotland. Gray got a lot of ball. The Scots were good at breakdown time, and I think this is a Scottish pack that can really take it to anybody in the world of rugby at the moment. And the good thing that I saw in that second half was they didn't let the French pack overpower them. It was a really tight tussle in that forward group from both sides, and I was liking the way that the Scots were getting to the breakdowns quickly and getting the ball out in that second half. Even though they had that setback of the French 2 tries, they didn't drop their heads. In fact, they actually got more motivated and got back into this game. And for me, a bloke from the Southern Hemisphere that's been watching Scotland play for many years, normally in a situation like that early part of the second half when France got a couple of tries, the teams, the old Scots teams from times in past would have dropped their heads and probably lost that game by 30 or 40 points. This Scottish team is very different, and Townsend's got them centred around their own self-belief and being able to take it on to any team in the world. And we saw that both in the Six Nations last year, and we're seeing it again now as we head into the Rugby World Cup. Now, a lot of that belief is coming from Finn Russell, I believe, as the leader of this group. And I think also now with players like Kinghorn who have got their opportunity at fullback, the retirement of Stuart Hogg has given Kinghorn this opportunity to present himself as the 15 for Scotland, and he's growing into that position and making it his own. So I think there's a lot of self-belief and growing going on in the Scottish team. They're not ranked in the top 5 in the world for a joke, and they're able to take it to most teams, and we saw that again yesterday against the French. So as the game went on, Scotland got back into the game. Van der Verve got a great try on the left-hand side after a really good cutout pass, found him on the left-hand touchline. He went in for the score. Unfortunately, he went off injured just after that, and I think a lot of Scottish fans will be hoping that Van der Verve's injury is not too serious and that he's going to be back on the field for Scotland in the not too distant future. So at that stage, Scotland were right back into the game. It was 27 points each as we headed into the last few minutes of this game. So as I mentioned, Intermac's injury will be a concern for France. They were probably hoping that they could get away injury free from this game, but it wasn't the case. And don't forget, we can see perhaps Ramos at first 5 and Jalabert if France need to cover for Intermac. We haven't found out yet though what the scans will show on Intermac's knee injury. So 27 points each going into the last few minutes of this game, and unfortunately an infringement at a scrum in the last few minutes handed the game to France. They got a penalty kick and Ramos wasn't going to miss that from 25 metres out in front of the goal. So a disappointing score end to Scotland, but a very good game to end with for Scotland regardless of the score and the outcome of the game. I think Gregor Townsend will be very happy to see that this particular team of Scottish players were able to take it to the best that the French have and really come back to their own in that second half. And I was super impressed with the way Scotland came back after being down 27 points to 10. France really got the momentum going in that first 5 or 10 minutes of the second half. And again, as I said, I thought that the French were going to take off with the game at that stage, but Scotland showed their resilience. They showed their potential from the bench as well. And I think that's another really good point for Scotland as they head into the World Cup. Talking about the bench, Sutherland and Smith came on for Scotland. I think they both made a big difference when they came on. They were able to keep the momentum going, and I think that's what any coach will be looking for as we head into the World Cup. They want to see those players that come in off the bench either maintain the momentum the team's got, or if they're chasing a game like Scotland were yesterday, that the team is able to step up and go forward. And I think that's what really excites me about this Scottish team. So, you know, I made mention in previous videos about the strength of the Southern Hemisphere teams and how well they're playing. We've seen now from France and Scotland how well they're playing. And no surprise with France, we all knew that they were going to be extremely tough heading into this Rugby World Cup. They can win it from anywhere on the paddock. They've got superstars in this team, but don't discount Scotland. They're going to make a big fight of this Rugby World Cup, and they're in that very exciting pool with Ireland and South Africa. And I'm sure South Africa and Ireland are going to show a lot of respect to the Scottish team, and if they don't, they're in for a big mistake. So just looking at the final points tally of this game, as I said, 30 points to 27 to France as the final score. But Scotland ended up scoring 4 tries to 3 in this game. Their tries, 2 to Steyn, 1 to Van der Verve and 1 to Dage. For France, Intermac, Pernod and Olivon got tries. Ramos was successful from the boot with 3 out of 3 penalties and 3 conversions. For Scotland, 2 conversions to Finn Russell and 1 penalty goal. So it was a good day indeed from Finn Russell. I think he showed great leadership, great motivation for this team. He kicked at the right times, he ran at the right times and injected himself into the back line. But more importantly, he took balls up himself when he saw that some of his forwards were a little bit tired. He took the responsibility to go into the tackle, turn over the quick ball, and Scotland were able to go again. So for France, Antonio came on, Macalou and Bibari. And those 3 really make a difference to the French team. Antonio is such a giant of a beast when he came on, and he did disrupt the Scottish scrum in the second half. They had trouble dealing with his power, height and weight in general. Bibari, I think, is one of these guys that can win a game for France from anywhere in the field, whether he's in the starting 15 or whether he's coming on from the bench. The Dupont and Intermac combination and for halfback and at first 5 happens to be, I think, one of the best in the world at the moment. They're very creative. Dupont has that ability to be able to kick off both feet. He's also very strategic with his distribution play, and he can also run through gaps and find spaces behind the close forwards for the opposition team. Ramos is a superstar at fullback. I think he's extremely good, got a lot of pace, injects himself into the line when required, but he's also very confident and consistent with his kicking, both at goal and in general play. So I really like him. And the French wingers, well, there's pace everywhere. Villery and also Pinot are both great and super fast in this French backline. I think Aldrit was a standout forward for me from the French pack. Woki had a big game as well. But across the field, the French are brilliant, and they have very good substitutes to come on and take it to any team. So they are going to be extremely dangerous in this Rugby World Cup. We're going to have some fantastic games, people, across this Rugby World Cup, and I can't wait for it to get started. So we saw a fantastic game between Scotland and France yesterday. Let me know what you think in the comments of this game. Who were your standout players from both sides? Was there anybody in France that stood out that I haven't mentioned? And also from the Scottish side as well. Did you think they were going to fall off France after that first couple of tries in the second half? Or did you have confidence that Scotland were going to hang in there and come back into this game? Just a quick word on the refereeing. There's been a few comments of that on my post, in particular between the England and Wales game. I thought Nick Berry controlled this game pretty well. Don't know about that last call in the penalty for France. I think he could have probably reset another scrum and let it go again. That's the call he made, though. We have to respect it. And the other point I'd like to make is I think the TMO did a really good played a really good role in this game. When they had to get involved, they did it fast and quickly and decisively, and the game was able to flow on. The players were communicated to very well, and I think that holds well for us as we move forward. If we can get TMO injections into the game when they're required to make those critical decisions, but do it quickly, at pace and decisively, that's all we're looking for from the TMO as far as I'm concerned. So a great game in St Etienne yesterday. France pipping Scotland 30 points to 27. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Help me get to that 2,000 subscription level, a little milestone for me in my YouTube journey. And I look forward to hearing from you all in the comments. Okay, that's it from me. Thank you very much for watching the channel. I'll be back again soon with another video. Until then, stay well, stay safe, and enjoy your rugby. Bye for now.